Welcome to Sleeping Figures, where we enter worlds of sleeping fantasy and quiet imagination. These stories are made to help you rest, drift, and find the calm between your thoughts. The day is over now, and the night welcomes you. Slowly, gently, take a deep breath in and let it fade out. Tonight, we wander to a valley shaped by a patient river. They call it the Glass River, a place where each ripple remembers its past. Long ago, the people said a guardian lived beneath the reeds. Kind, slow, ancient, as moss and stone. But the river changed. It rose without mercy, and the people began to whisper of an ogre whose silence meant guilt. His name was Brannock. This story begins on the night he first heard the river cry out, a hum beneath the rain, and followed it upstream, toward the source of what the humans had forgotten. So breathe again, in and out. Let the calm carry you forward. Your journey begins where the first fire met the rain. The reeds burned beneath the rain. That was the first impossible thing, the way fire and water tangled in the wind, hissing like a creature trying to breathe. The villagers stood waist deep in the flood, their torches trembling, their faces cut with fear and smoke. They shouted my name as if it were a curse, though they did not know what it meant. Always just Brannock, old river word for root beneath the tide. Their fear pressed against the dark like heat. Someone hurled a stone that barely reached my ankles. Another tried to stab the current itself, crying that the ogre had swallowed their fields and taken their livestock. Their words broke apart before they reached me. Above them, the swollen moon swam inside the water's mirrored skin, bright and blind. My house sat quiet among the reeds' woven crown of moss and willow, glimmer of driftwood walls half hidden under the mist. Inside, the air quivered with the smell of wet earth and smoke, metallic and sharp. The floor rippled faintly, for it was only water, hardened by faith and forgetfulness. Light filtered through reeds and built a dim green world, enough to soften sound and thought alike. That was my refuge, until they came shouting. I saw them through the rain. Their feet stirred mud that was once barley ground, once home. I understood their hatred. Grief always tries to name a face. In another age they might have offered bread, but the flood had taken all gestures of kindness with it. So I stood still, my spine heavy with the river's patience, my breath slow as the tide. To fight them would only prove their tales. Their cries thinned as the wind shifted. I turned my ear toward the current, listening beneath the roar of rain. Then came that sound, the hum beneath everything, metallic and smooth, as though the river had swallowed a bell, whose song never ended. It pulsed through my feet and spine, through the sudden silence between waves. Not thunder, not nature, something placed, something wrong. While they threw words, I waited. The hum deepened. The water around my legs grew warmer, trembling like an animal trapped beneath glass. When I closed my eyes, I could taste copper on the air. The torches flickered lower. Fear began to cool into exhaustion. They would retreat soon, telling stories of the beast who lived in reeds and whose silence meant guilt. I let them. Their anger would keep them safe from the truth for one more night. When the last torch sank behind the ridge, the sky reopened, and mist settled over the valley. I stepped into the current and felt it recoil before recognizing me again. Even rivers grieve strange seasons. My home drifted backward, dissolving in the rain as though it, too, were ashamed to be seen. The hum waited upstream. So I went. Each step carried the scent of soot and rust. My own reflection wavered beside me, a shape of moss, stone, and half-forgotten kindness. Behind me, the valley sighed. and the reeds smoked until morning. The river ran heavy that morning, a long dark ribbon winding through what had once been open meadow. Trees that had known the gentleness of spring now sank, half buried in mud, their branches heavy with drowned fruit. Each mile carried ghosts of voices and sent children shouting near bright banks, fish weaving between roots, sunlight turning stones to faint gold. But all that brightness had blurred under a slow skin of silt. The further I walked, the more I felt the current tremble through my body, sorrow moving in me that was not mine, yet I carried it the same. I followed the pull of that sorrow. The hum whispered through each bend, low and unsteady, like fever breathing behind the world. Flooded orchards leaned tiredly against the flow. Their cracked branches rattled softly in the wind. Grey water brushed its way past broken stones, once carved with names and ownership marks that now melted like sleep. Moving there felt less like walking and more like drifting across memory itself. By midday the rain had lifted. Mist lay across the valley, low and patient as breath. I stopped on a stone too large to have drifted from anywhere, moss cool beneath my fingers. The water pressed against it, as though testing what still lived. When I closed my eyes, the ordinary rush fell away, and beneath it another sound waited, small but steady, pulsing like a metal heartbeat underwater. The river's song had changed, pierced by something unnatural stirring far below. That evening, as dusk gathered in copper streaks, I reached the marsh they call Drowned Oaks. The place smelled of sap turned sour, of roots struggling for air. Ghost fire glowed beneath the water where gas rose from rot. Beyond the still shapes of trees, a small light flickered, steady, deliberate, not torchlight. Lantern, maybe. I followed, each step sending ripples that bent circles of fungus gleam across my skin. A figure waited by a half-collapsed hut woven from bark and reeds. She did not startle when I emerged from the mire. Her hair hung wet down her back, streaked with silt. Her hands rested upon the water as if it were tablecloth. She said, "Stranger, your wake speaks too loudly." Her voice was thin, but the rhythm of it echoed the current. I answered, "I am no stranger to this river. I can tell," she said, dipping her fingers. "It listens when you breathe." She rose slowly, the lantern light catching her eyes grey like flooded wood. "What is it you seek?" "The source of a wrong that eats from below," I said. She nodded once, as if the sentence were familiar. "Then you hear it too." She led me into her dwelling. Inside, reeds crisscrossed the low ceiling, and water reached our ankles. Small jars of clay floated between corners, each hum filled like trapped bees. She lifted one and listened. "The currents carry memory," she said. "If you quiet your mind, you can read their speech. Most never learn to listen long enough." I told her the name the villagers used for me, how they saw the floods as my hand. She only smiled slightly. "They fear what holds mirror to their greed. The river does not punish, it remembers." Her name was Lyra. She stayed here because the world above moved too fast. She heard meaning in tremors the way others traced stars. From beneath her roof hung dozens of river shells tied to threads that hummed faintly. "Each note carries the voice of a different bend," she said. "Together they tell whether the current still knows its path." That night, she showed me the art of listening. We sat knee-deep in quiet water, our palms open upon the surface. "Close every sense, but touch," she murmured. "Feel how the flow curls around your skin. It speaks in pressure, not sound." I obeyed, and through that tense stillness, I felt vibration shift minute, uneven, pulsing with distance. It clawed backward through the stream, origin far upstream where mountains smoked rain. When I opened my eyes, Her gaze met mine. "You felt the hum," she said. "Yes. Then you know it isn't the river's own song. Something foreign stirs the underflow." She filled a basin with marsh water. The surface broke around her breath. "The dam," she whispered, though I had not mentioned stone. "There are walls somewhere that think they can own the flow. But what is kept captive always finds escape." Outside, wind stirred the tall reeds. Water knocked against the posts like muffled heartbeats. For a long while, she said nothing more, only traced circles through the basin with her fingertip. "The river doesn't rise to punish," she told me quietly. "It rises to escape." Her words pressed deep. I thought of the villages, the torches, the cries, the stories. Maybe the flood was never vengeance. Maybe it was the river gasping for breath. Beneath chains it never chose. "If the river is prisoner," I asked, "why me?" "You are made of its marrow," she said. "You still remember the slow patience of water. Perhaps it remembers you for that reason." When dawn blurred through fog, she was already waiting by the edge with 2 reed-wrapped bundles. "Upstream lies the wound," she said. "You will need ears more than strength." I looked across the mirror-flat marsh. "You would come with me?" Her mouth bent into something that was not quite a smile. "The hum keeps me from sleep. Travel may clear the noise." We left when the sky was pale copper. Our reflections walked beside us, double ghosts drifting through reeds. The further we went, the less human her voice sounded. She spoke to currents under her breath, answering their murmurs, as though translating between worlds. By mid-morning we crossed the last farms, their fences broken and half-digested by silt. Skeletons of houses poked through standing water like forgotten ribs. Children's toys floated past in slow circles. The hum beneath all this seemed tighter, quicker, as if the river's arteries narrowed toward a single constriction. Lyra paused where willow roots tangled the stream. She touched the bark, listening again. "It beats wrong here," she murmured. "Too constant. Nothing in nature stays that steady." "Then it is built," I said. "Yes," she whispered, "built greedily." Her eyes lifted toward the north, where mountain clouds gathered like bruises. "That's where the river tries to flee, and something won't let it." We walked until sunset flamed behind the flooded horizon. The sound of frogs echoed between hollow trunks. Yet even those calls seemed strained. I could feel the pull of the current urging forward, asking. Above us, a pale moon touched the water, splitting our shadows in two. Lyra lowered her lantern until its flames skimmed the surface. "Each journey should begin when reflections blend," she said softly. The flicker of light stretched across my rough palms and hers. "Two travelers, one purpose. When we return, let there be silence again." I watched her fingers fold the wick, dimming flame to ember. The moment the light vanished, the hum quickened, as if the river sensed our oath. We stepped into the deeper flow, my shape beside hers, both merging under moonlight, bound by the same unquiet rhythm, moving toward whatever waited, where the water was no longer free. We reached the city at dusk, when the water had turned the color of forged copper. The last of the day's light scraped along rooftops, half submerged in silt, where gulls perched, like thoughts refusing to leave. They once called this place Mirenport, the jewel of the valley, but now only its towers still breathed above the flood. The rest slumbered beneath, murmuring through broken arches and hollow doors. I could feel the hum strongest here, quick as a heartbeat beneath smothered stone. Boats drifted between toppled walls, their sails patched from old banners. The people greeted ruin with commerce. They balanced crates of dried fish atop floating barrels, trading by lantern, light as if the tide were just another season. Even ruin becomes habit. We watched a boy steer a skiff with one oar while a woman beside him shouted prices for salt and leather. Behind them, Banners of green copper hung limp along water-marked buildings, the emblem of the Merchant Guild of Copper Scales. Their slogan glittered half-erased across a sluice gate. Order through flow, value through control. Lyra studied the words. They think the river is just a book for counting, not life. Her voice barely rose above creaking hulls. I asked her how long the city had survived like this. Long enough to forget what solid ground feels like, she replied. We moved with the crowd along a narrow plank bridge strung between rooftops. Merchants shouted through makeshift stalls nailed to chimneys. The air smelled of tar, fish oil, and stale gold, the scent of things kept too long. Beneath us, families lived in rooms filled waist-deep with water, curtains swaying like tides. I saw an old man anchoring his bed frame to the ceiling beams. From far below, coins glinted through the murk. Divers searched for them daily. I was told salvaging drowned wealth, to sell again by nightfall. We sell rainfall, one trader boasted to another as we passed. By the pound? Asked the buyer. By the promise, came the laughter. Same measure that keeps the guild rich. Lyra's glance met mine. They sell the storm now. What will remain when the sky is empty? Across the largest canal rose the guild's hall, a palace of hammered copper and glassy slate. The reflected firelight made it look as though it were burning from within. We crossed to it quietly, blending among porters hauling offerings to the upper ledgers, crates of pearls, bottles of bottled rain, even small idols carved from driftbone. One guard nodded us through, mistaking me perhaps for a hired dredger, some old giant bent to labor. Inside, warmth struck like breath caught in iron. Copper mirrors lined the walls, each etched with the image of scales balanced over waves. Lyra touched one mirror and hissed softly, "These reflect more than faces." The surface rippled, though no wind passed. I leaned closer and saw outlines of valleys, the flood patterns shaped deliberately, like diagrams of harvests. Each was marked with runes: trade flow, harvest cycle, sacrifice. They planned the river, I muttered, as if it were a machine. Her answer came low. They built one. Footsteps echoed from the far door. We hid behind a pillar veined with patina. A trio of officials entered, robes threaded with copper wire that sparked faintly as they moved. The leader was broad, his mouth oiled with pride. "Our ledgers are blessed again," he declared. "The dam holds steady. Rain falls where we call it." Another man protested, "The lower villages drown." "Collateral," the leader replied. "To grow rich, water must obey. We sell rainfall the way others sell grain, simple business." The words struck me harder than torches ever had. To them, the river's agony was profit. The hum I heard at birth now served their pockets. My hands ached with restraint. Lyra pressed her palm against my wrist. "Not yet," her whisper reminded. "We still need truth, not fury." When the men departed, we examined the room. Sheets of vellum hung from rods like dried skins, drawn with maps of current control. At their center lay a single page illuminated with gold lines. A dam spanning the gorge upstream, carved runes along its base, channeling both magic and motion. It pulsed faintly even on paper. "So that is the wound," Lyra breathed. "A wall that drinks greed." Outside the window, the canal lights flickered as if agreeing. I tasted the air it carried, that same copper tang as the flood that had burned the reeds. Before we could flee, bells rang thin alarms, echoing through the canals. Someone had noticed intrusion. Guards stormed the hallways, torches painting red streaks across metal. Lyra gripped my arm. "Through the aqueducts," she said. "Follow me." We plunged into a side passage leading to a service tunnel. The ground tilted downward, water rushing faster with each step. Behind us, shouts grew distorted. Crossbow bolts clattered off stone, harmless as rain. Ahead, The tunnel widened into an aqueduct that once carried clean water. Now it crumbled, bricks loosened by flood and greed. The current surged around my knees. I felt its pull, the river itself guiding escape. A torchlight flared close behind. I turned. The torchlight felt close behind. Lyra whispered a short chant. Her voice broke apart softly into mist. The fog grew thick between the arches, swallowing the red light of the torches and the sound of their feet. Soon only the heavy quiet remained. We slowed only when the aqueduct opened into a broad basin lined with pillars half submerged. Moonlight seeped through cracks above, silvering the surface. Lost cargo floated barrels, planks, a single chest split open to spill coins that sank without sound. They hoard even as they drown, Lyra murmured. The hum pressed stronger here, pulsing beneath each heartbeat. I waded to the basin's edge and listened. The sound now held rhythm 1 to 2, pause, 1 to 2, as if gears turned beneath tons of stone. Somewhere far upstream, the dam churned energy out of the river's pain. I closed my eyes. The current rose around me. I heard the guild's hard, cold words. Then felt the river's own slow thought, not speech, but a soft, endless plea for release. It wanted release, not ownership. I let the tide climb past my waist, my ribs. It responded like muscle reawakening. Slowly, a circle of calm formed where I stood, pushing outward until waves met resistance. Lyra watched silently as a moored treasure barge began to shift against its ropes. I made no movement. The water simply obeyed itself. The barge's hull lifted, its cargo sliding free into the dark. No crash, no violence, just surrender. The tide cradled the vessel until it vanished under stillness, absorbed whole. The guild's wealth dissolved without ripple. Lyra bowed her head. Justice without anger, she said softly. Few hearts master that. When silence settled again, the fog thinned. Somewhere distant, alarms continued. But the city paid no mind. Traders still haggled. Children still rode across their drowned courtyards. Such is habit. Suffering becomes soundscape. Lyra stepped beside me, resting a hand on my arm. You felt it, she said. The river follows your thought. It followed its own will, I replied. Then perhaps you and it are no longer separate. We climbed the steps, leading out of the basin, leaving behind echo and driftwood. From the highest terrace, we looked back across the canals. The once bright city shimmered beneath moonlight like a skin too thin to hide decay. Over rooftops, the copper mark of the guild burned faintly from tower to tower, but for the first time its reflection seemed weaker. Lyra traced the flow of light with her eyes. They will blame the river again, she said. Let them, I answered. Blame is a kind of worship they understand. The night grew colder. We followed the narrow channel cutting northward, water that once fueled their turbines now slipping free. The hum lessened for the first time in days, replaced by a whisper, almost a sigh. The river's voice guided us between skeletal bridges where ivy gleamed in dew. Midnight brought us beyond the outer gates, where commerce dwindled to silence. Behind us, the city's lights looked like dying embers upon a wet hearth. Ahead, faint thunder rolled, not skyborne, but mountain deep, the sound of the dam exhaling power into darkness. We walked toward it under a sky of restless stars. Each footstep stirred memories beneath my skin. Floods, springs, droughts, every chapter of the river's own grief. Lyra walked close, her breath leaving ribbons of fog. The gorge waits, she whispered, and what it holds still breathes. I looked back once at the flooded markets, their mirrored waters whispering trade prayers to no gods at all. Then faced upstream. The current quickened around my legs, as if eager to climb. I whispered thanks, and together we began the long ascent toward the mountains, toward the roar that had never learned to lie. The gorge narrowed until even wind grew cautious. Walls of black granite pressed close, their faces slick with moss and lightless water. The current cut deeper here, circling a hollow where cliffs bent inward as if bowing to something buried. Mist spiraled above, like smoke drawn from an unseen chimney. Lyra stood beside me, cloak wet against her shoulders. "The hum gathers beneath us," she said. I nodded. Each pulse now trembled through the soles of my feet. We followed the gorge until the river vanished into a whirlpool no wider than a cottage floor. At its center, light flickered a dim green flame, sinking rather than rising. "That's the door," Lyra whispered. She knelt and traced symbols in mud, the lines trembling apart as soon as she drew them. "Old wards," she murmured, "from when man still bargained with flood." The whirlpool's pull deepened. Without hesitation, she stepped into it. I followed. Water closed over us like silk turning to stone. The world inverted up, became down. Time folded. Then pressure released, and we found air again, standing inside a vast cavern dripping with slow rain. Light came from nowhere and everywhere. The walls curved outward, carved with spirals that breathed with faint luminescence. Underfoot lay smooth slabs, engraved in river runes, loops and crossings telling stories of flood and seed. It smelled of iron and salt preserved through centuries. Lyra's eyes widened at the sight. "The archive," she breathed. "I thought it was myth. 2 centuries. 2 centuries. Iron hive. One hand. Along one wall, carvings depicted figures of both flesh and water clasping hands across the current. Each scene showed exchange. Man shaping stone, river granting flow. The first pact," she said softly. "When our ancestors asked the water to serve, they promised reverence in return." Her fingers brushed a line of faded script. The promise was bound to hunger itself. Break it, and desire curdles into flood. We walked deeper. Pools gathered between blocks like mirrors for lost light. From cracks in the stone, faint glows leaked a fungal bloom mixed with drifting plankton. Tiny stars under the skin of earth. The air vibrated faintly, not from the hum above, but from another rhythm, older and sadder. Lyra lit a small moss lamp and placed it on a ledge. Its glow carried further than fire. On the wall beyond, new carvings appeared angular, more deliberate. Scenes of men building dams, temples shaped from copper, pipes feeding light into coins. Beneath them, inscriptions deepened. To draw profit from penance, to bottle the tide, and own its longing. I stared, until lines blurred into sickness. She read them aloud, voice low but steady. "It says the dam feeds on prayer and coin. People built it when their piety turned transactional. Every flood a tithe, every drought a sale." She looked toward me. "This cycle repeats whenever greed forgets the old pact." The chamber widened. Columns supported by roots stretched up into darkness. Between them hung chains of silver crusted with shells. Some hummed faintly, others only shivered at our passing. Within those sounds I recognized voices, the whispers I'd heard along the banks, not imagination but memory imprisoned. Pale glows formed within the chains, shapes like human silhouettes losing edges. River spirits, countless and thin. One reached toward me, and a ripple of light passing through my chest. Its touch was colder than sorrow. A sound filled my mind, not word, but plea, "Free us before the heartbeat stops." I stumbled back, every sense tasting water older than rain. Lyra caught my arm. "They are the drowned memories," she said. "The river's thoughts trapped to fuel enchantment above." The dam keeps them alive to harvest their prayer. Harvest, I repeated, the word tasting of rust. So the flood grows not from accident, but from design. Yes, she said. The guild siphons storms as offerings. Each spell of wealth above feeds on imbalance below. The more they demand, the more the river convulses to survive. We followed the chains to their anchor, a slab at the chamber's heart, written over with slow, moving lines, spiraling inward like a wound, still bleeding light. Lyra knelt, pressing both palms against its surface. Her breath turned visible in the cold. It still draws power. Look, each line connects to rivers beyond this valley. The network isn't just stone, it's hunger mapped across water. I crouched beside her. The slab pulsed against my fingertips like a living heart. Within it echoed both the guild's machinery and the river's anguish. What happens if it stops? I asked. The world floods, she said. But not from vengeance, from sudden freedom. The river would pour out all it held captive, washing away what refuses balance. We sat in silence, weighed by that truth. Around us, the whispers of the chained spirits thickened into a choir of sighs. I could almost see their memories, the first rains carving valleys, the laughter of millers, the shimmer of minnows beneath calm skies. Centuries of partnership undone by a single generation's greed. Lyra extinguished her lamp and let bioluminescence reclaim the dark. We must reach the gorge where the dam breathes, she said. Its runes must still connect here. Break them, and the line between coin and current dissolves. A tremor ran through the floor at her words. Dust drifted from above. The hum swelled again far away, yet overwhelming like a beast sensing intrusion. Even the lights along the walls flickered, turning from green to red before fading. It knows, I said. The dam listens, Lyra whispered. It fears release because its appetite is endless. She rose, gathering her lantern. Come, knowledge without action becomes another cage. We retraced our path toward the whirlpool's hollow. The spirits followed, fading as we ascended through the rising rush. I heard them thank us, in tones that sounded like rainfall across leaves. The tunnel closed behind, sealing the old vows inside. When we broke back into open air, dawn glimmered faintly over the gorge, water frothed below, restless. The hum now thundered in full strength, guiding us toward the mountain's throat where mist rose like breath from something alive. Lyra turned north, eyes reflecting cold light. The dam still breathes, she said. Let's make it remember how to rest. Together we climbed the slick path, carrying the weight of secrets too old for mercy, while behind us, the river's buried voices finally began to quiet. Dawn began as a bruise above the gorge. The air tasted of wet metal, the mist rolling low and thick across the whispering cliffs. Each droplet carried light from the hidden sun, turning the world to molten silver. Lyra walked beside me, her cloak heavy with dew, her voice reduced to breath. Ahead, the roar of the river changed a deeper, slower rhythm that beat behind the fog like a heart laboring under chains. When the mist lifted, we saw it. The dam of black granite. It filled the horizon, a spine of stone crossing the gorge, vast enough to hold back an age. Water pressed against its curved wall with visible strain, folds of foam curling like muscle. Thin silver lines crawled across the surface, pulsing with a low, metal sound running through the stone. The rhythm dragged through the air, steady and too fast to be natural. That is no wall, Lyra whispered. It's a mouth. Steam rose from fissures where the river tried to breathe through the seams. At intervals, vents opened to release prayers shaped as vapor, brief echoes of the spirits we had seen below. Beneath that, the low sound pulsed the turning of wheels beneath the spell skin of stone. The river's will bound into industry. We crossed a bridge of basalt slabs that trembled with each surge. The sun slid higher, gold light breaking against dark faces of granite. Small shrines lined the path, coins pressed into cracks, wax candles burned to stubs. Offerings for prosperity, promises made with greed's clean hands. Near the center, a figure waited, veiled in soot and wearing a robe threaded with copper, his staff crowned with an orb of condensed mist. His outline shimmered, as though the dam itself breathed through him. "Travelers," he said, his tone calm and polished. "Have you come to make purchase or complaint?" Lyra's answer carried ice. "We've come to end your trade." The mage's mouth curled almost kindly. "End? No one ends flow. We guide it." He gestured toward the vast reservoir behind him. "We have tamed chaos into rhythm. While villages drown, cities thrive. The market requires balance, and suffering weighs less than progress." I felt the river shudder beneath such words. My patience, the patience of floods holding until banks crack thinned. "You steal breath from what cannot defend itself," I said. "That isn't balance." "An ogre's morality," he replied softly. "You are riverborn, are you not? You, of all beings, should value order. Without walls, water devours. We simply measure appetite." His logic carried the sheen of rot polished smooth. Copper threads along his sleeves flared as he raised his staff. The orb brightened, pulling mist into its core until light bent inward. I heard the same metallic hum explode in intensity. The dam trembled, runes screaming with cold light. "Control the river," he declared, "and you control desire itself. A perfect economy." Lyra stepped forward, spreading her arms. Wind caught her cloak, revealing lines of script inked along her forearms. Old words I could not read, but that the air remembered. Her voice steadied into resonance with the water's roar. "Desire without mercy is drought-wearing silk." The runes nearest us flickered. The mage frowned, pressing harder with his staff. Lightning shimmered across the granite, spreading in slow veins of pale light. "You meddle in what keeps the valley strong," he murmured, voice trembling through mist. "Step back before your body joins the silt." I did not. The river's pulse inside me rose until thought turned to flow. I am the current. The ground loosened beneath my feet, water welled upward, folding through air like breath exhaled too long. When it fell again, my shape gained weight and calm. A presence of soil and rain made one. The mage faltered, but only smiled faintly, lost in his conviction. "Even the river bargains for favor now," he whispered. Lyra's eyes met mine. She moved to the nearest pillar supporting the dam and pressed her marked hands to its base. Her breath left her in a visible stream of mist that slid into carved runes. One by one, the glowing lines dimmed, their voices softening from scream to sigh. She worked without pause, drawing each rune's breath into herself until her skin shimmered faint blue. "Stop her!" the mage roared. He sent the orb's light toward her like a thrown net, tendrils of energy twisting through air. I stepped between them. The strike hit my chest and burst, heat folding through me in widening rings. It did not cut, it pressed, then drifted away, leaving a pulse that throbbed in time with the current itself. The ache became distant thunder under skin. Beneath that pain flowed another rhythm, gratitude from the river itself, quiet and endless as deep tide. I exhaled slowly until my breath and that rhythm matched, and the air tasted faintly metallic like the world remembering itself. Lyra's words steadied into a long, quiet chant. She spoke in tones that flowed like water over stone. The syllables carried rhythm. The lines on the dam flickered, then dimmed, as if slowly falling asleep. Light began to pool within the cracks, slow, wheeling, patient. The hum that had ruled us for days thinned until it sounded almost tender. The mage fell to his knees, copper robe spilling tarnished reflections. "You fools," he gasped. "Without constraint, there's only chaos." Lyra didn't turn. Her voice was nearly breath. "Constraint built this suffering. Let the river define its own course again." She pressed her palms once more. The final line beneath her hands broke with no sound. Only a long, heavy sigh that came from everywhere at once. Lyra lifted her focus. The air caught her gently, lifting her shape across the widening mist. She drew out into threads, each one glowing and fading into the rhythm of the falling mist. The magic folded inward rather than exploded. All along the dam's length, runes released small breaths of light that shimmered, waited, and vanished. Water groaned below, stretching as though waking from a long-held cramp. Cracks spread slowly across the granite, luminous veins refilled with day. The mage blurred into the haze, form swallowed not by violence but by transparency, his outline softening until it became just another shimmer on the water's face. Stillness hovered for many heartbeats. Then the first slab loosened and slid. Sound swallowed into depth. The resulting roar climbed slowly, like wind returning to old hollows. It swallowed sky and silence alike. I stood firm as the torrents rose higher, folding foam around my waist, my chest, my throat. The weight pushed not against me but through me. In that endless surge, I felt the river tremble not with rage but weary relief. Its release carried nothing of vengeance, only breath at last. There was no fight, only return. For a breath, the clouds opened. Sunlight drifted across the flood's crest, touching each drop until it shone like quiet glass. Water curved around me in lingering circles that whispered Lyra's echo, her voice now woven in current and calm. Beneath the fading roar came a single tone, the low hum of water moving freely, steady, and kind. Then the current lifted me. Bridge, rock, and sky blurred together, folded into one continual drift. As I fell, I saw the dam bow inward, its heart glowing where turbines once strained. That light rose like a hand reaching home. My form, already half water, welcomed it. The gorge turned flume, the flumes softened to embrace. Above the endless sound, I heard no hum now, only the long breath of water freed, slow enough to become sleep itself. Darkness pressed close, but it was alive. Beneath the collapsing gorge, I sank where solid form had no meaning. Water drowned all sense of distance. Sound became color. Color became pain. Through it, I felt her Lyra's breath scattered into threads of light, guiding me deeper. The roar outside softened until it resembled slow breathing. The hum had vanished. In its place stretched a trembling silence, vast and waiting. The river spoke without words. Every droplet brushed my skin as though recognizing kin long absent. Images coursed through me. Mornings when the flow wound clear between cattails, children running barefoot through dew, mountains birthing streams under gentle thunder. Then darker scenes, ledgers, coins, stones, choking channels. Each memory belonged to the same spirit now failing beneath my hands. I sank until my feet touched nothing. A faint glow throbbed below, pulsing like the final heartbeat of a world unsure whether to continue. In that light, forms swam shapes of fish long extinct, birds drawn in gleaming lines, roots that reached as if to cradle both loss and endurance. The river's essence shimmered there, stretched thin like glass about to shatter. "Brannock," it whispered through current and bone, "I am broken. I cannot heal what feeds upon me." I wanted to answer, but water filled my mouth, language dissolving to rhythm. What words could speak mercy to something that had carried it for centuries? I understood then. All my strength, all my patience had been borrowed from this being. To restore it, I must return what I had taken. Surrender does not mean death. It means dissolving shape into belonging. I let go. The tide caught from behind my ribs, not sudden, but steady as if invisible hands unthreaded me stitch by stitch. Breath slowed until it became the current's breath. Warmth left in ripples, never emptying but drifting outward as gentle residue. My body loosened, edges blurring. The glow beneath my skin thinned like morning fog. Within the weight of water there was no sting, no loss, only an endless softening. It felt like arriving somewhere already waiting. Flood memories spread outward, no rush and no end villagers' shouts melting into murmurs, the scent of tilled earth lifting under quiet rain. I saw how water does not judge. It duplicates what it meets. Their greed had built walls of stone. My fear had built walls of silence. Both heavy, both useless now. What remains is rhythm. Inhale, exhale, the lazy circle of belonging. Lyra's voice drifted again, smaller than thought, larger than sound. The river doesn't rise to destroy. It rises to escape. The echo wound through me like breath through a flute. My pulse joined it. Flesh unraveled into tiny currents that shimmered green, then silver, then clear. Each droplet spun free with a single quiet memory before folding into the flow. The light that filled me spread, unhurried, through unseen channels, touching tributaries and waking the small lives hiding under rock and reed.